Joining me right now is the vice chairman of the Center for Election Integrity at AFP and former White House principal deputy press secretary, Hogan Gidley. Hogan, it's good to see you. You heard what James Comer just said about the FBI. Here you are looking at election integrity. The FBI tried to change an election with all of their collusion with the media, and yet this omnibus bill gives them billions of dollars more. It's as if the Senate Republicans are not following the headlines of the day.
And they're not paying attention to the wants, desires, and needs of the American people either. Of course, there should be an investigation into what Twitter has done. But as you begin to pull on that thread, what you realize is it could turn into an investigation, and kind of is right before our very eyes, of the FBI and its involvement here. This story, though, is tailor-made, Maria, for the mainstream media because it's dark, shadowy conversations behind the scenes, behind the curtains. You're getting to see how the sausage is made and how they're trying to, from on high, dictate things to the American people, and the media is largely ignoring it, much like they're largely ignoring the main guts of this omnibus bill, which is absolutely an abomination. Comer touched on it. He's absolutely right. Of course, there's more than 4,100 some odd pages in this ridiculous bill, 7,500 special interest earmarks for things like salmon studies, which is mentioned more than 50 times, fixing an Iditarod dog trail, bee-friendly highways. I didn't even know we had bees or honey in this country until the federal government got involved. And, of course, gender studies in Pakistan, renaming 25 post offices. The whole thing's ridiculous. But on top of that, the big cherry is $45 billion to Ukraine so that it can protect its sovereign borders, not to mention $410 million to do the same thing for Egypt and Jordan, Oman, and other places there in that region. Why can't we have the same funding to protect our own borders in this country? It's completely tone deaf. It reeks and smacks of elitism at the highest levels in D.C. The American people are suffering out here, and this is what they choose to focus on. And why Republicans are on board with this just shocks me beyond belief. I mean, look, with friends like this, who needs Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, this is right before the House is expected to take the majority, and Kevin McCarthy becomes the House Speaker. Roll Call is reporting that the reason that the omnibus text was delayed was over the FBI headquarters issue. Senate Appropriations Chairman said that if the matter is not resolved, lawmakers might as well pass a full-year stopgap bill. So it's that FBI spending in the middle of all of this that actually had them delay the text. And then you've got Minority Leader Mitch McConnell saying, oh, we reached all the GOP priorities. Here's what he said about the support for Ukraine. Watch this.
Providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians, that's the #1 priority for the United States right now, according to most Republicans. That's sort of how we see the challenges confronting the country at the moment.
I don't know, Hogan. The U.S. already approved a total of $65 billion to Ukraine. The omnibus spending package adds another $45 billion, and we don't have a dime to our own border to help the Border Patrol agents. Again, any money going to the border is to house the illegal migrants, so it's just encouraging more illegal migration.
Sure, and their policies have been doing that since Joe Biden took office. He said it on the campaign trail, flood the border, come on in. This is what we're about in this country. He got rid of all the protections from the previous administration that worked to have a sensible, logical, rational system along the southern border. Now it's utter chaos. Even Democrats are pointing to it. But the fact that Mitch McConnell would say the #1 issue facing Americans is Ukraine is completely tone deaf to what the American people are asking for out there. Look, go back to the last election. The #1 issue was the economy, of course, but then you go down to 2 and 3. It's crime and the southern border. People out there are feeling the brunt of the Joe Biden administration's bad policies out there. We need someone to stand up and say, we're going to change course. And instead of fighting against that and fighting for the American people, you have the leader in the Senate on the Republican side saying Ukraine's the most important issue. Wow. Of course it's important because global matters and the federal government working to protect allies and friends and partners around the world is important. But it doesn't come close to what we're facing here at home and the struggles of real families this holiday season. Mitch McConnell is way out of touch on this one.
Wow, stunning, James.
Yeah, Hogan, James Freeman here at the Wall Street Journal. You wonder for the taxpayer when we're ever going to see some spending restraint in Washington. Your old boss, Donald Trump, wanted to restrain spending, ultimately didn't do it because he felt like he needed a bigger defense budget, and the trade-off was spending kept going up. You go back to the sequester, that one era where you had spending restraint for 2 years in a row. Do you think Republicans, to get a handle on this and to be able to drive real change, are going to have to find savings in the Pentagon budget?
They're going to have to find savings, but remember that battle at the time. Of course, Donald Trump put forth a budget that actually balanced for the first time in decades. But of course, Republicans refused to go along with it, as did Democrats. As I mentioned, they're kind of the same now in Washington, D.C., not a dime's bit of difference. But the fact is, when we pushed forward for military spending, which we desperately needed, Democrats, per usual, hold every single dollar hostage to a pet project here at home. And I mentioned some of the ridiculous things they want funded just to promote their own radical ideology and to make themselves feel better in their own district, as opposed to actually doing something for the American people. So, yeah, the focus has to shift from Republicans and Democrats as well. And as they set up for new budget fights in the new year, the question then becomes, are there going to be shutdowns? And again, we lose that particular PR battle every time in the mainstream media. It seems like we get rolled when we're in the majority and the minority. But are they going to stand up and say, here's the line in the sand, we're willing to shut down the government over the things the people want and need? That's the real question heading into the new year.
Hogan, it's great to talk with you. Thanks so much, Hogan Gidley, joining us. We appreciate it. We will see you soon.